Hey there, self-love pioneers. Welcome to another resource for the month of September here on my YouTube channel, where I just spend the whole month talking about self-love, and I love it. I'm really enjoying doing this. I'm enjoying going on this journey with you. I hope you guys are enjoying my resources. I hope you're checking out the hashtags. Don't forget you can use the hashtags to share your own story or give your own input or your insights. Talk about anything to do with self-love that's interesting to you. Share and put forth your own ideas. The hashtags are self-love set and self-love stories. Use them to your supreme advantage, my darlings. So in this resource, I'm going to be talking about dealing with chronic pain, physical restriction. You could say that I'm talking about disability as well, although obviously I feel that resources that are based around disability are slightly different to those that are based around chronic pain in a lot of cases, or managing pain or dealing with living with pain. But I'm not necessarily just talking about chronic pain. I think some of the advice in this does cater to those who experience physical restriction through coping with disability and invisible disability and that kind of thing. So take the advice and use it in the way that best fits you. Use it in the way that it resonates with your situation. And obviously don't take the advice that you don't feel is catering towards you or, you know, directed at you. This is a really important topic for me because I do deal with chronic pain. I suffered a back injury many moons ago, over a decade ago now. And I have a profound herniation in my L4, and that's led to some other complications up in my neck and shoulder as well, and that kind of thing. And I've dealt with that on and off through the years, and at a certain point in my life, there was about a 4-year period in my life where the pain was very, very bad. I spent extended amounts of time off work. I was put through the mill with hundreds of different kinds of medications. It was ridiculous. I had physio. We discussed surgery for me. At one point it was so bad that I really couldn't walk for long periods of time. I had to spend a lot of time in bed. I got a lot of conflicting advice. It was quite frustrating from a biomedical point of view. So I really feel like this had a huge effect on me. It had a massive impact on me. And I have made a few videos about my journey with chronic pain. I will leave them below in the down bar for those who have not seen and would like to. So this is a really important resource for me to put across, and I really wanted to be on a walkie and talkie video today doing this because I'm aware that my intro for Self-Love September is really sunny and lovely. I'm in a really kind of bucolic situation with the green and everything, but actually the weather's been really shite while I've been filming the Self-Love September videos. Well, I don't want to say it's been shite. It's been lovely and sunny, but there's been periods of rain that have come in pretty much every single time I've sat down to film. So I have ended up not being able to go outside. And in other cases, there have been little periods of time where I was able to film, but I had a client literally 20 minutes afterwards. So I can't be in the forest filming if I'm then going to have a client very soon afterwards because it's not that close to where I am. So I definitely do want to get some walkie and talkie videos in during Self-Love September, just because my intro for it is so sunny and green and lovely, and it's not as if that weather isn't here anymore in the UK. It is, and I want to take advantage of it. But sadly for this one, which is about chronic pain, I'm sat down, but I don't need to be sat down. I can now go for a solo walk anywhere I want to, at any time I choose, within reason and within the standards of safety that I've set for myself. And that's a really lovely thing. It's awesome to be able to get to this point where I do have more control over the pain. I am managing it well. I am living what I feel is my best life in many ways in the physical sense without prescription medication. So it's been a really good journey for me. But as I mentioned a while ago in my last video scrapbook, when I talk about my own journey, I'm very cautious and I feel very wary. And what I'm wary of is the fact that everybody has such a different journey with chronic pain and with physical restriction. And I don't want people to feel like I'm coming out and saying that my journey is the framework for what your journey should be, or you can achieve on your journey exactly the same thing as I've achieved on mine. I would never try and say that. And I think it's really important that we all are allowed to own our individual stories when it comes to chronic pain. There's nothing wrong with taking inspiration, taking ideas, taking tips, using other people's stories as motivation, thinking about different ways that you can handle your own restriction or your own pain based on what other people have been through. But when it gets to the point where you are comparing your journey to somebody else's, to the point where you're becoming angry with yourself for not having the same kind of results, I think that's where it starts to get really nasty. And it also sometimes gets nasty on the other end when somebody has had a really a picture perfect success story, or somebody's really gone through some kind of a mindset shift, or something has happened for them that has made everything better or has helped them to recover, and they are then preaching at everybody else as though that is the only one right way. And that can be really dangerous and really demeaning for people as well. So I want the first self-loving message when it comes to chronic pain and physical restriction to be a message of owning your own story, and always making sure that you're investing more time and more energy in your story and what's going on with you than you are in comparing and contrasting with others, or giving other people the power to tell you what you should and should not be doing on your own journey, or how you should be feeling about your own issues with chronic pain. Don't lose sight of your story. Don't try to assimilate your story into somebody else's. Don't demean your own journey. Always place the focus primarily on your own journey. One of the things that helped me a lot on my journey with my physical restriction, with my back injury, and with the pain that came with that, was realizing that there's nothing wrong with recognizing the ways in which I'm restricted, and there was nothing wrong with recognizing that I was in pain. But it helped a lot to focus more on what I could do, and on what my options were, and on the different ways that things were positive for me. And this is just a really simple, very obvious mindset shift that people talk about all the time in all kinds of different ways. I think that a lot of people that are struggling with pain management issues or with injuries, stuff that affects their body, get really turned off and really upset when somebody starts to talk about the positive mindset and how important that is and how intrinsic that is to improving your life or to recovery, whatever it is that you've got in your line of sight as the goal. And I know that it can be frustrating, and I know that it can feel as though someone isn't listening to you when they talk about how positive mindset means so much and it really is a game changer. But put it this way, take it from somebody like me who at a certain point actually had to have a funeral for dancing, because genuinely my back was so bad I thought I would never dance again. But I have to say, and this is all I can say, and this is honest, that when I started to look more at what was within my control and challenge myself to do what I could do and focus more on how I could take action rather than dwelling on the shit that was going wrong, or the shit that wasn't fair, or the shit that was a real pain in the arse, it did change the game for me. And that is all that I can say. I can only be honest. Taking accountability for the ways in which you can better your situation when you're dealing with pain or physical restriction is not the same as blaming yourself. And I think that's a distinction that I really had to make. When I first started hearing these things about positive mindset and about focusing more on what I could do and less on what was going wrong, I felt very, very defensive. I felt really angry. And I felt like most of the advice that I was reading or hearing from people was coming from a place of complete lack of empathy on their part, and that they didn't know what I was going through and they couldn't possibly understand how difficult it was for me. And I held on to that defensiveness. But the truth is that there is a massive difference between me blaming myself for what's going on with me and what's going on with my chronic pain, and then this other healthy end of the spectrum where I'm taking responsibility for the positive changes that I could make, and I'm taking responsibility for how much of my time and focus I spend in the doldrums, in the crap, focusing on the negative, because that kind of stuff weakens your resolve. And it makes your line of sight so narrow. It's like you've got blinkers on all the time, so you can't even see any real opportunities for change or any real opportunity to think differently about your situation and do something more to improve your situation. So for me, I had to drop that defensiveness, and I'm putting this in the video because there could be people out there who are dealing with physical restrictions, chronic pain, recurring injuries, who are feeling very much like when they're told to look at things positively and look at things proactively, they are actually kind of being blamed for their situation or being told that it is their fault. And that's not actually it. There is a big difference between those two things. And when I actually dropped my defensiveness around that, I think things got a lot better for me. In a previous video that I made about chronic pain, one of the ones that I've linked for you below, I can't remember the name of it right now, but I do talk in that video about how much time I spent vocalizing my issues, talking about the pain, rating the pain from 1 to 10, talking about it first thing in the morning, talking about it last thing in the evening, talking about it with everybody, updating people on it. And I realized that I gave a lot of power to the pain through doing that. And that's one thing that I had to take responsibility for on my own journey, was just looking at how much power and how much focus I gave this issue, and recognizing how that was actually causing my power to wane and causing my sense of positivity and independence to wane, to the point where I really had convinced myself that I couldn't do anything, that I couldn't challenge myself in any way or push myself in any way. I felt completely enslaved by the pain at every moment of every day, from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. But actually, when I realised how much I was using language to give power to that pain and focus on it all the time, that was a big thing that I realised I needed to unhinge myself from. I realised it wasn't self-loving to talk about it 24/7. It wasn't self-loving to keep making it into the focal point of the conversation. If you are living with chronic pain, if you're living with some kind of physical restriction or disability, ask yourself, how much do you communicate about that to other people? How much do you complain about that to other people, or to one person in particular? Do you communicate a lot of needless stuff that really doesn't have any business being in your conversations? Do you talk about it a lot more than is actually healthy or necessary or helpful? There are so many different resources out there for people that are coping with chronic pain or physical restriction. There's so much amazing stuff out there to watch, to read, so many things to appreciate. You're going to find little nuggets of wisdom dotted all over the place. I would really recommend strongly that you keep some kind of notebook or some kind of section in your journal, or at the back of your planner, or on the computer in a Word document or whatever, that is dedicated specifically to different snippets of advice, different quotes, different mantras, different tips that have had an influence on you. So you can keep all of those things together, and it's a little bit like a toolkit that you can return to and you can add to over time. There are going to definitely be resources out there, particularly in the more psycho-spiritual end of the spectrum, or the metaphysical end of things, that come across as blame gamey or judgy in their tone, and you're not obligated to take on those resources. If you're going through resources, if you're sifting through different things, and you find something that implies, for example, that you're dealing with your pain because of something that you did in a past life, and that doesn't resonate with you and that's not helpful to you, and I think for most people it doesn't resonate and it's not really helpful, then you can move on from that. You know, don't take on resources that actually don't offer anything useful that you can learn from, or take comfort from, or take empowerment from. Just ditch those things. There are definitely also resources out there that imply that all physical pain is the direct result of something which is unresolved psycho-spiritually, and again, that might hold a lot of weight with you, and you might really feel like that resonates with you, or you might feel like that is not helpful and that is just a bunch of hokum and it's not what you're looking for. Your mileage will vary, but it's okay for you to use the resources that are empowering to you and that you feel like you're really getting something from. Use resources that you feel you can action in some way. For me, I think that one of the only things that I found was psycho-spiritually unresolved for me was my lack of awareness of how much my mindset and my internal narrative could have control over things like my physical health and well-being. And actually the only way that I ended up learning that lesson was through the chronic pain itself. That was what led me to that breakthrough. So I definitely consider my pain to have been a really supreme teacher. And that's not to say that I don't have my pain anymore, because I definitely do experience chronic pain still, but my pain management level now, because of the mindset that I have around it and the commitment that I have to keeping up with those things that I found that work for me, the pain is a lot less and I can really have a much better quality of life. I do have a much better quality of life. Within that psycho-spiritual realm of advice, where there's a lot of talk about how physical pain represents something that is unresolved psycho-spiritually, there's definitely a lot of focus on things like, for example, the chakra system. I know that for me, when I started to look at more psycho-spiritual ways of looking at physical pain, I came across a lot of different suggestions that I begin to work with my base chakra, because my pain from my injuries right at the bottom of my back, literally where the seat of my bum starts. And there was a lot of ideas about how working on the base chakra and activating and strengthening the base chakra, etc., would be helpful. There was a lot of stuff about how people that have back injuries in that area usually have a weak base chakra, meaning that the themes and the energies associated with the base chakra are normally not the favourites of somebody that has a lower back injury. I used a mishmash of Eastern and Western, a mishmash of psychological, psycho-spiritual and biomedical. I really drew from all of it and I tried to find the thing things that would empower me and the things that would work. I am really about what works. I'm a chaos witch, and so for me it's really all about what works and what does the job, and I'm willing to experiment and I'm willing to mishmash things until I find that combination that I'm looking for. So for me, I did look into working with my base chakra, and I did recognize that a lot of the themes associated with the base chakra are actually the themes that I'm weakest on in life. So I did work with the base chakra, and it did help me to shift my mindset, and it did help me to come more into, I guess, sending empowerment and good energy to that part of the body. Do I think that alone is what helped me to gain a handle on my chronic pain? No, I do not, but I definitely do think it was part of it. And for me personally, it wouldn't have been self-loving to come at this purely biomedically, purely from the standpoint of modern Western medicine. It wasn't going to work like that for me. I did try it for a long time, but it turned out that a combination of that stuff and the psychospiritual stuff and looking at my psychology, all of those things together actually helped much more than I think anyone on their own would have done. It might help you to think about the extent to which you require empathy and discussion with others who also are dealing with chronic pain in general, or your specific kind of chronic pain or disability. It's definitely fair to say that it can take a lot of pressure off of immediate family and friends when we actually use support groups for people with chronic pain or with our specific kind of problem. And certainly it can also welcome more empathy into the equation, and that can be really helpful in getting a handle on it and feeling more empowered in your way of dealing with it. So take some time to think about whether or not you might actually require some form of group support, maybe an online network of people who are dealing with the same thing, you know, a bunch of people that you can talk to, a bunch of people that you can sound off with. Pain and restriction in the physical body are incredible teachers. They are a real bitch, and there is a lot of frustration and a lot of difficult emotion tied up with the experience of physical pain and physical restriction. There is no doubt, but I also have learned much more gratitude and empathy from the experience of having an injury and being in an immense amount of pain and being physically restricted than I have from many other experiences and many other lines of inquiry in my study, in my spiritual path, etc., that I've come across in my life. Pain for me has been a guru. It has absolutely changed the game. It's made me more humble. It's made me more grateful. It's made me appreciative of what I can do and what I can have in this lived experience. It's been incredible for me. And it took me a long time to come to the point of being able to say that, but it started, my mindset around it started to shift even when I was still in a great deal of pain and I was incredibly restricted and I was still having back spasms all the time and I was like falling over in the street and stuff like that. At that time, I really was so angry with my body. I was so angry and frustrated by my physical vessel. I used to say that if I could leave my body and stand above it in the street, I would fucking kick it. I was so impatient and frustrated and flummoxed and confused by what the fuck was going on and what I could do to make it better. I felt betrayed by my physical vessel. I felt like it was a hunk of junk. And I was directing all of this negativity, all of this crappy energy towards my body, and then becoming even more frustrated and even more perplexed when it kept working in resistance to what I wanted rather than in alignment with what I wanted. And so I started to realize that actually the self-talk meant a lot. The way that I spoke to my body and interacted with my physicality meant a lot, and that I couldn't just carry on kind of throwing hatred and loathing at my body and then wanting it to do what I wanted it to do. I had to listen to it. I had to appreciate it. I had to shower love onto it. For me, this stuff worked. For me, it made sense. I'm not saying that I would recommend any one way of treating chronic pain or dealing with physical restriction. I'm saying though that I do feel mindset has to come into it to an extent, and I think that's something that a lot of doctors could stand to talk about more. Actually, one of the best things that my doctor ever did for me was just fucking level with me in the end and tell me that really for a lot of people it's mindset that makes the difference. It's not that we're going to find the perfect medication for you after trying 25 different medications for you. It's that something's got to click inside your head and you've got to figure out that you have got to work with this in spite of it, and you've got to learn what is right for you, what is good for you, what can make those small positive changes, and you've got to keep focusing more on that than you are focusing on the fact that you feel like you're in a hole and you're frustrated and you're angry and you're down all the time. And actually that was one of the best things he could have said to me, and it really made a light switch come on in my brain. It's something that I'd already been thinking about. I'd already been thinking about the fact that just purely treating something biomedically without any focus on my mindset or how I was feeling within myself, etc., without any kind of shamanic focus, if you like, was a bad deal. But because I was so afraid of what my body was doing, and I was so scared of the pain and the lack of control that I had over my body, I really was giving a lot of power away. And when I started to take that power back, and it was partly because of that pep talk that that doctor gave me, I realised it's about so much more than what the medical community can do for me. It's about what I'm prepared to do for myself, and it's about how I'm willing to bring my spiritual skills into the equation as well, and work with my body and love my body rather than being against it and being angry with it all the time. Ask yourself whereabouts you are in resistance to living the best life that you can possibly live. If recovery or partial recovery is what you're aiming towards, ask yourself whereabouts you're putting yourself in resistance to that. If you're just aiming for a better quality of life and you're aiming to feel as though you can function despite the issues that you're going to continually face, ask yourself, where are you in resistance to that? Where are you resisting it with your actions? Where are you resisting it with your habits? Where are you resisting it with your thoughts and with what you say? Be really honest with yourself about these things. Ask yourself how you are in your own way and how you intend to get out of your own way. After watching this video, you might want to just take some time to think about what it is that you actually need at this point on your journey. What do you need that you are not getting? What do you need from yourself? What do you potentially need from others? What are you missing? What's missing? When you can actually tell people what it is that you require, or make requests of people that are really going to be helpful to you, then you find that people around you stop behaving in ways that are decidedly unhelpful to you. You've got to be a little bit clearer about what it is you're looking for and what it is that you need. And you've got to be able to do that with yourself too. Ask yourself what your needs are. Do you need more time for you? Do you need to complain less and actually dedicate less of your language and your communication to your illness? Do you need to seek out more resources, more blog posts, more books, more videos? Do you need community? What is it that you really feel like you need right now that you're not getting? And start to give that to yourself. And again, if you feel like there's anything that others can give to you or provide you with, or indeed stop doing, so that you can live a more comfortable life and have a better quality of life, be prepared to actually put that stuff on the table. Be prepared to ask for it. Be prepared to say that it would definitely be helpful to you. This is a big exploration, and it might take you a couple of sessions to really get into knowing what it is that you need, and then actually starting to take moves to bring those things into your reality. One of the things that I realised that I personally needed was tough love. I realised that I needed to give myself a bit of tough love, and I needed the people around me to do the same. And I needed them to not necessarily placate me or mollycoddle me when I was really focusing on the pain and really giving it a lot of energy and a lot of attention. And so that's what I asked for. For other people, it's going to be something different, you know? Really think about what it is for you that you require from other people and from yourself. Spiritual activity and spiritual practice is truly undervalued when it comes to managing pain, living with restriction or disability. No matter what else you're doing, whether you are on a biomedical journey or whether you're not right now, I think relaxation techniques, meditation, connecting with divinity in some way, using affirmations, using manifestation or spell work or ritual or any of those things can be incredibly empowering. It can have an amazing effect on your journey. It had an amazing effect on my journey, for absolutely sure, and I still use it now. I still use things like sympathetic magic and affirmations, and I make all kinds of healing potions and lotions and shizzle. I have healing baths sometimes, you know, that I've actually I've placed a concoction into and I've blessed them and all that kind of good shit. So it's still something that I use even now, and it's not something that I would ever get rid of. It's not something that's ever going to leave my personal practice of dealing with my chronic pain. When your body isn't playing ball and you are in pain, or you are restricted, or something keeps going wrong and you're dealing with it, it can really teach you to be incredibly assertive. It can teach you to fight for your rights. It can teach you to go after what you need. It can teach you to speak up even when you're afraid of doing so. There are so many lessons inherent within the journey around chronic pain or restriction or disability, in terms of how assertive you need to be and how much you are determined to get what you need for yourself and act in alignment with self-love. There are so many lessons there that somebody that's never been through this shit won't get access to in quite the same way. It's a unique set of lessons and experiences that only those who deal with this kind of thing will ever really be able to truly appreciate. You know, it's like they say something like, you know, you'll never know what it's like to be a mother until you are a mother. Well, you'll never know what it's like to kick ass with chronic pain or some kind of physical restriction until you're really in the trenches with that, until you're really warring with it, until you're really at war with it, you know, like you will not know until you've done that. And it really showed me what I was made of in a lot of ways, So I'd really encourage you, if you do struggle with chronic pain or you do struggle with physical restriction, to take some time after watching this video to think about how it has shown you what you're made of. And how do you want it to continue to show you what you're made of? What has it shown you about yourself, about your willingness to fight for what you need, about your willingness to be strong despite the incredible pain and the incredible inconvenience and the incredible burden that is upon your body a lot of the time? What has it shown you that you can do? How has it shown you that you can be in the world every day? In terms of being assertive as well, you know, there are a lot of people who can be incredibly domineering, incredibly bossy, incredibly know-it-all when it comes to what somebody with chronic pain actually needs. There are lots of people going around saying that their way to recovery is the one right way. There are lots of people that are very quick to offer advice or tell somebody where they're going wrong without even knowing the nuanced complexity of a person's situation. And when those people roll around, you really have to be assertive. You really have to, you know, ask someone to back off. You really have to tell somebody that you know what you're doing and you're doing what's right for you, and you know that unsolicited opinions are not required. Sometimes you really have to be like that, because in my personal situation I know that there were so many people who felt like they could tell me what to do or what I was doing wrong, and at first it would be really upsetting and I would shrink into myself. But after quite a few years of dealing with my chronic pain, I was much more assertive and I was much more willing to firmly but fairly shut people the fuck down and get people off my back. And really teach people how to treat me. I showed people how I expected to be treated when it came to my chronic pain. And when it flares up and I talk about it and I get those kinds of responses, I still do show people very much how to treat me and what is and is not acceptable. You've got to be able to feel like you can ask people to back off, and you've got to be able to feel like you're not going to be demeaned and you're not going to be told what is right for you or what it is that you're doing wrong. So again, it's really your problems, your issues, teaching you how to be assertive and teaching you how to stand in your power, which is a really cool thing to watch yourself doing. Honey bunnies, thank you so much for watching this resource. I hope it was helpful. There is so much more that I could say. I could literally go on about this particular subject for hours on end, but since it was very highly requested for Self-Love September, I do hope that I've done it justice. Again, don't forget to use the hashtags, and don't forget also that I'm doing Self-Love Sunday on SoundCloud every single Sunday during the month of September, so please check in with me over there as well. So much love and self-love, guys. Blessed be. Oh, I found an altar space. Just set up here.